DreAllDay.com.
What's good, everybody? Dre Baldwin, DreAllDay.com. This type of topic that I'm talking about right here is not something that I usually talk about, but I've been looking on social media, what's been going on the last 24 plus hours, not related, well, kind of related, but not exactly to the NBA Finals. And this is specifically for us black people, because what I've seen going on in the media space is pure foolishness. A lot of people being misled by people who are supposed to be our leaders. So I just want to kick some knowledge real quick in this video, and hopefully some of you will listen, process this, think about it, and use it to start using your own brain to think for yourself and not letting anybody on the internet or TV or radio think for you, including myself. Now, the first reason I'm bringing this up is because I remember I read this article. I'm talking about, let me tell you what I'm talking about first of all. LeBron James, if you didn't hear, not talking about playing. He has a home in California, which I didn't know about, but someone went to his home in California and sprayed the N-word on his home, like a racial slur on LeBron James' home. People found out that it happened, that it was LeBron's house. It became a news story. Someone asked LeBron about it. He went to his press conference the day before the finals, and you can go look that up on YouTube. And he basically said, you know, it's terrible. You know, racism still exists in America. No matter how successful you become, you're still going to have to deal with racism. And I thought about my kids, and he mentioned he thought about Emmett Till, who was a young 14-year-old boy who was brutally tortured and lynched and murdered in Mississippi back in the 1950s. His body was thrown in a lake. LeBron James mentioned Emmett Till because Emmett Till's mom, once she heard what happened to him, for his funeral, she had an open casket so everyone could see the terrible stuff that had been done to her son's body because of some accusation made by a white person when he was visiting friends, relatives rather, in Mississippi. When LeBron James mentioned Emmett Till. Now, here's what happened after that, because that's the only part of it that needs to be said. And LeBron also said, you know, no matter how successful you get, no matter how much you do here in America, you're always going to have to deal with racism. The first thing that I thought when I heard that was LeBron James, and I was talking with my lady about the same thing today. LeBron James is a leader. LeBron James is a leader of people who don't even know LeBron. There's a lot of you out there right now who follow what LeBron says. You listen to what LeBron listens to. You buy the shoes that LeBron wears, the clothes that LeBron likes to sport. When LeBron James has something happen to him that we could say is an unpleasant circumstance, someone spraying a racial slur on his house, there's a lot of different ways he can deal with it. And the first thing that I thought when he came out with his statement was that he made it seem very doom and gloom. Like, damn, no matter how successful you get, all this negative stuff is still going to follow you no matter what. And the thing about that that got my attention was that many people are looking at LeBron, and this is an unconscious conversation. They're thinking to themselves, you know, I want to work hard. I want to go work on my game and be successful, whether it's in basketball, business, with your family, whatever it is you want to do in life, so I can get to where somebody like LeBron is at least financially, at least resources, physical, material resources wise, so I can just, you know, live the life, live the highest possible life. But when a guy like LeBron comes out and says, damn, no matter how successful you get, you still got to deal with all this negative stuff and this negative stuff, this negative stuff. Unconsciously, that's going to cause some people who are young, impressionable, and following people like LeBron to say, you know what, maybe it's not even worth it for me to put that work in. Maybe it's not even worth it for me to go this far. And that's not me saying that he shouldn't have said, hey, this is negative. The person who did it is stupid. We're all against racism. This is not the thing that we need. But LeBron James offered a whole lot of he painted a picture of a really cloudy day is what he did. He painted a cloudy day picture, and he didn't offer any sun. He didn't say, hey, you know what? Even though this is a situation, even though this may always go on, even though this, you know what? And then he could have put some food in there. He could have put something positive in there and say, you know what? Despite all of this, I'm going to do this, and us as a people, we can do this. LeBron James didn't put that part in there. And I feel like he missed the mark on that. Not to say that he was wrong, because look, he's at the conference, the press conference for the NBA Finals. Maybe he didn't even want to talk about it, but he was asked it, and he knows that if he didn't say anything about it, there'd be some people on social media and in the media who would have took him to task, like, yo, dude, you could have spoke up for black people and you didn't do it. So he went and said whatever it is that he said, but he didn't offer anything positive. He didn't offer any food to go with it. All he did was paint the negative picture, and him being a leader saying, damn, all this stuff is so terrible. How is that going to make somebody who's thinking about getting to where LeBron is at, or doing all this work in front of them to get to where LeBron is at? How is it going to make them feel? Again, unconsciously. Yes, they can think about it and say, well, I could do this. But how is it making them think unconsciously if they just are a follower of LeBron? And again, there are a lot of people out there, probably not like you, who are just followers. They listen to what these people who they've chosen as their leaders say, what they think, what they wear, what they do, and they just follow it without considering it. So that's the first thing that I thought. Then this is what happened. This guy named Jason Whitlock, he's a writer. He's on TV. He's a talking head on TV. And when I say talking head, I don't mean that negatively. This is what he is. He sits on TV, he talks, and people look at his face while he says what he says. He said on his show and also on Twitter that LeBron James was making too much of it. It's basically what he said. He said because LeBron James is rich and LeBron James, we know LeBron James makes a whole lot of money. Y'all can Google how much he makes, whatever it is, that he does not bear the brunt of racism is what Jason Whitlock said. He said that the racism doesn't apply to LeBron James because he has so much money. He has a second home that costs $20 million. He could have his workers clean the graffiti off the house. It didn't really affect him directly. He wasn't even at the house when it happened. And he said LeBron was playing the victim. He was playing the role of the victim in this situation. Now, I don't agree 100% with what Jason Whitlock said, but I also don't 100% disagree with it. So let me tell you what he said that I think he misworded. I think he could have said it completely differently, and the part that everyone else went off of, which is the point of this vid. Him saying that racism doesn't apply to rich people is what he was saying. He was saying him, Oprah, Obama, LeBron James. Racism, yeah, there can be people who don't like black people or say some negative things about black people, maybe even write it on your house, but it doesn't really apply to people who are rich because, look, we got the resources. This is what Whitlock is saying. We have the resources to brush that stuff aside and we can still live the good life despite the fact that somebody may be negative towards us. And what he was saying, what he also said, he went on to say this, racism is when you can't get a job, when you can't go to a certain school, you're denied certain opportunities. LeBron James can get any job he wants. He can go anywhere he wants, and he has every opportunity to do anything he wants to do at the drop of a dime because he has the resources to do it, as does himself, as does Oprah, as does Obama. That was the overall thing that he said. Now, this is what happened afterwards. A bunch of people on social media, first of all, Chris Broussard, who was on the show with him when it happened. Then there was Martellus Bennett, who's an NFL football player. I think I read he plays for the Green Bay Packers. And several other people who are black and have followings on social media took Jason Whitlock to task on his comments. They basically said, Whitlock, you don't know what you're talking about. You shouldn't be talking about this. You are off point. You are out of line in what you said. Racism can apply to anyone. And then people pulled out examples. Oprah Winfrey being discriminated against because she was black when people didn't know it was Oprah at a store or something like that. Other famous black people, Barack Obama having people going against him because he's black, even though he was the leader of the free world as president of the United States. So a lot of people threw out all these examples of people who do have money, do have resources, but still having to deal with racism. And then saying Jason Whitlock, a lot of people just went to the point, Jason Whitlock, yo, you are not qualified to speak about what black people are going through. Racism applies to everybody. Just because you have money, you're still going to deal with racism. And this is what a whole lot of people said. And then there's Charlemagne. Let me put this point in there too. Charlemagne the God, Breakfast Club. Everybody knows Charlemagne. Everybody listens to it at least once in a while, including me. We laugh at it at least once in a while, including me. I'm a fan of Charlemagne. I remember him when he was working for Wendy Williams back when she was in Philly. So I'm a fan of Charlemagne in the Breakfast Club. He goes on and he does this donkey of the day, calls out Jason Whitlock for saying something dumb. He thinks what Jason Whitlock said was stupid, played a little clip, and then instead of him getting on Jason Whitlock, which he did a couple weeks ago on some other situation with LeVar Ball, and when LeVar Ball was on TV arguing with some white woman, he calls Michael Eric Dyson. Michael Eric Dyson is a Georgetown professor. He is looked at as a leader amongst blacks. Number one, because he's an educated black man. He's a professor at a college. I mean, you don't get more credible than that than being an educated black man. I think we all can agree with that. Michael Eric Dyson comes on the radio on the Breakfast Club. This is all on audio. It's on YouTube. You can look it up. You probably already seen it if you're watching this. Michael Eric Dyson goes on to kind of dissect what Whitlock said. And one of the phrases that Michael Eric Dyson used that really caught my attention was he said, Jason Whitlock is a mouthpiece for white supremacy in America. Jason Whitlock is basically taking it and flipping it on people, that when a black person says they have been discriminated against or some racism has happened to them, that Jason Whitlock flips it and makes the person who's calling racism, that they're using it as he's basically victimizing, or what's the word I'm looking for? Making the person who's calling racism look like they're wrong for calling racism, basically, is what he was saying. And that Jason Whitlock is trying to appease white people and white supremacists in particular by attacking LeBron James. And he didn't really attack LeBron James. Whitlock didn't attack LeBron James. But this is the way Michael Eric Dyson and Charlemagne the God made it seem. And now let me tell you something. This is a guy named Scott Adams. If y'all don't know who Scott Adams is, you ever seen a cartoon called Dilbert? Scott Adams is the guy who draws the Dilbert cartoon. Scott Adams is also a really smart guy. I'm actually reading his book right now. It's called How to Fail Miserably at Everything and Still Succeed at Life. It's something close to that. I'm reading it right now. He's a hell of a writer. It's a really good book. And Scott Adams, during the recent presidential election, during the cycle of election, he started writing about how he thought Donald Trump was going to win because certain traits that Trump had is that he's good at stirring up his base. He's good at influencing people and all these reasons why he thought Trump would win. A whole bunch of people started going at Adams like, you're crazy, you're terrible, how are you going to support a guy like Trump? Then Trump ended up winning. Scott Adams became really popular for that outside of his Dilbert comic strip, which has made him millions of dollars. And one of the things that Scott Adams talks about, he talks about this mental phenomenon called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance. If you never heard of it, Google it. Cognitive dissonance. Look it up, spell it how it sounds. This is what cognitive dissonance is. It's when a human being, me or you, we in our minds, consciously and somewhat unconsciously, we decide that we're going to act like certain pieces of information don't exist, or we're going to create certain pieces of information based on a smaller piece of information. We create something bigger and then we just set it in our mind as if it's true. And that's why we call it cognitive, because we're actually thinking about it, but it's dissonance, meaning we're choosing not to see certain things, and we're choosing not to see certain things that exist, and we're choosing to see things that don't exist. That's what cognitive dissonance is. And Scott Adams writes about this because he's often online. I follow Adams because I like to follow people on every side of certain arguments, and he seems to be I wouldn't even say a supporter of Trump, but he's a defender of Trump. He takes the things Trump does that a whole bunch of people say Trump's crazy, he is incompetent, he's stupid, he's terrible. And Scott Adams defends it and explains it and says, well, maybe not, because look at this, look at this, look at this. So I follow Adams not because I'm a supporter of Trump or I'm a hater of Trump, but because I want to hear it from both sides. I don't want to hear all my information from one side of anything, because then I'm going to become like them. So anyway, what he talks about is cognitive dissonance when he's often talking about Trump. And I thought about it when I heard it today, because this is what happens when people are experiencing cognitive dissonance. They use a thing called the absurd absolute. You don't know what the absurd absolute. This is what it means. It's basically if I'll say something like, you know what? It's hard for the Cleveland Cavaliers to play defense on Kevin Durant. Let's say I just said that. It's hard for the Cavaliers to play defense on Kevin Durant. And then somebody says, no, it's not, Dre. It's not hard for the Cavs to play defense on Kevin Durant. They can figure it out in the next game. They can just do this, this, and this. And then I say, let's say I build on my argument by saying, well, KD had 38 points and he made all his shots pretty easy and he was open too much and the Cavs didn't pay enough attention to him, and KD averaged 30 a whole bunch of times in his career. He's an all-star. He's going to be a Hall of Fame. I start building on my argument, and then you say, well, Dre, and then basically I make so much of a point that you don't have anything to counter my point, so you make my argument seem absurd and you bring it to you take it to the full out extent, an absolute that pins me into a corner, basically, that anything I say I'm wrong. Basically, it will work like this. You would say, let's say you're going against my argument, you would say, well, Dre, you're basically saying nobody in the world can stop KD and he can just score anytime he wants. That's the absurd absolute. Basically, you took the point that I said it's hard for people to stop KD, and you extrapolated it into, I said, nobody can stop KD and he can do whatever he wants. That's not what I said. It's an extension of what I said, but I never took it that far. So you taking it that far is what's called the absurd absolute, which makes mine look absolute. I said nobody can stop him. A word like nobody or all the time. If you ever talking to somebody and they say, every time this happens, you do this, that's called the absurd absolute. Or somebody says, oh, you're saying, well, all black guys try to find white girls so they can XYZ. That's the absurd absolute. Or her over there, that girl over there, she only dates black guys. That's the absurd absolute. Even though you don't know it to be true, you take a little piece of information that you do know is true, and then you stretch it out as far as you can and try to make that person either look stupid, you try to make them look really bad or really negative or maybe even really positive, just so no one can go against your argument. It's basically like you backing yourself up against a wall so that anybody who comes at you, you can defend yourself with yourself and with the wall at the same time. Y'all understand what I'm saying? And Scott Adams said, whenever you hear people using the absurd absolute, they're experiencing cognitive dissonance, and they're using it. What it means is it translates to, I don't have any logical, reasonable points to argue against you with anymore, so I'm going to make you look crazy and absurd by pushing your argument to the far out extent that I can, so that anything you say, you look dumb. That's what cognitive dissonance is. So Michael Eric Dyson, who I respect this man's word. I haven't read his books, but I've heard of him for years. Again, he's a black man as a professor at an esteemed university in America. You can't get a higher level of credibility than that. He came on the Breakfast Club today at Charlamagne's behest on the phone. He was on the phone and basically tore down Jason Whitlock by saying, you're a mouthpiece for white supremacy. You're trying to appease white people. And then I'm reading the comments. Anytime I look at a Breakfast Club video, I look at the comments because I know people are going to go in there and say crazy stuff that's in the name of entertainment. They're like, Jason Whitlock's a coon. He's a house slave. He's just trying to appease white people. When we have the, what do they call it, like the black people draft or the black people lottery, we got to get rid of Whitlock, trade him for a white person that's more black. Things people say as jokes, but we all know the saying, a lot of truth is said in jest. This is the reason why I'm making this whole video. I had to give y'all all that context so y'all understand why I'm saying what I'm saying. It's like this. You can't go on, let's say a white person spray painted on LeBron James' house. We don't know who did it. They didn't catch the person, obviously. Let's say some white person did it. They hate black people. They want to see all black people dead and the whole black race destroyed, right? Think about this. They wrote on LeBron James' house to start moving towards their goal. Get rid of all black people. I hate black people. We can assume, let's just safely assume that this person has some negative feelings towards blacks because they did this, okay? Can we all do that? All right. So they wrote on LeBron James' house. That was the only thing they did, was write on LeBron James' house. They didn't do anything else. They didn't shoot LeBron James. They didn't attack LeBron. They didn't go on the internet. They didn't write a book. Nothing. All they did was write on LeBron James' house because they don't like black people. LeBron comes on TV, one of the biggest leaders in black entertainment, and he says, damn, no matter how successful I am, I'm always going to be looked down on. There's always going to be all this negativity. He painted this big picture of doom and gloom. He said nothing positive in the whole statement. So now think of this white person, the white supremacist who hates black people, who wrote on LeBron's house. Damn, I got one of the leaders of black people to go on TV and say all this stuff that makes it look like their life of success is not so great. Guess what? That's going to cause a whole lot of people who follow this guy to not even go after success because of the way he painted the picture. They're actually pleased. Y'all follow what I'm saying here? So y'all got to understand there's multiple angles to everything that happens in life. So let's just say that they thought that, okay, and they're kind of satisfied. Then this is what happens. Jason Whitlock comes out and says, well, LeBron, it wasn't that terrible. You ain't got to take it that far. I don't know why you're talking about Emmett Till. Nobody killed you. Nobody tried to take your life. Why are you trying to analogize a spray paint on your house with Emmett Till's body after he got murdered? And personally, I think that was ridiculous also for LeBron to mention Emmett Till. Dude, nobody tried to kill you, dude. What the hell are you bringing up Emmett Till for? But I understand why, because in the world we're in now, the social media world we're in now, sensationalism and choosing a side and just going as hard as you possibly can on one side, even if it's absurd and absolute, and cognitive dissonance, that sells, that works. That's what works. I mean, that's where Black Lives Matter came from. Black Lives Matter came from just that, taking something to the furthest possible extent, saying somebody did this little thing, but then you extrapolate it into this big thing and then go attack them. That's what it is. That's how it works. So Jason Whitlock came out and said, dude, you taking it too far. It wasn't all that. There was some spray paint on your house. You should have took it as disrespect. You ain't had to make this whole big statement about racism. You don't experience any opportunities being denied to you because you're rich and you can do whatever you want, which I think Jason Whitlock has a point in saying that, but I also understand that it is racism. If somebody spray paints on your house, you can say it's prejudice against you if somebody did it in a negative way, which, again, we don't know. We're just going to assume based on what it was, based on the action. A whole bunch of people went and attacked this guy, Jason Whitlock. They attacked Jason Whitlock. Charlamagne did. Michael Eric Dyson. A whole bunch of people on social media. This is what I want all of you to understand. If I'm a white supremacist and I'm looking at this whole situation, am I happy or am I disappointed? I'm happy. Why? Because all I did was get a whole bunch of black people to start attacking each other using their followings on social media. The whole result of all of this, a white person writing on LeBron James' house, what's the result? A whole bunch of black people attacking each other, calling each other names, saying each other is a house slave and a coon and you're not standing up for black people. We're fighting each other. There's no one is going after the perpetrator or whoever is causing racism in America, whoever is oppressing us or oppressing you or oppressing them. No one's doing anything about that. All we're doing is talking shit about each other, going back and forth on social media, which is going to achieve what exactly? I don't know. But this is what we're doing. Y'all all have heard the analogy. If you talk about war or you talk about families, or there's a folk tale that goes down that my lady was telling me this, that a man had like 5 sons. He called all his sons into the room. He handed each one of them a stick, and he said, break the stick in half. And they all broke the stick very easily. Then he put all the sticks together as a bunch, and then he said, try to break these in half. And they couldn't break them in half. And the whole point was, divided, any of you can be beaten, but together, nobody can be beaten. Ladies and gentlemen, black people, when we start attacking each other, we are doing more damage to ourselves than anything anybody could spray paint on the side of a house. More than anything anybody can say, more than anything that Donald Trump or anybody you don't like, what's the chick on TV, the blonde chick, Lauren, anything any of them can say that you think is negative towards black people, nothing they can say or do is worse than us fighting against each other. And that's all we've been doing on social media for the last 24 hours. And I'm going to tell y'all something that Tupac said in 1996 in a song called White Man's World. He said, use your brain. It's not them that's killing us, it's us that's killing us. It's not them that's knocking us off, it's us that's knocking us off. I mentioned war a moment ago. In war, the easiest way to defeat an army, especially a strong opposition, is divide and conquer. Get them fighting each other. Instead of us fighting them head on or trying to come up with a strategy or trying to surprise them or hoping our weapons are greater than their weapons, all we got to do is get them arguing with each other. If we can break them up from the inside, then it'll be much easier for us to be part 1, part 2, part 3 instead of all 3 of these parts coming together as a whole. Black people, over the last 24 hours, LeBron James got a racial slur spray painted on his house. We haven't done anything to combat racism over the last 24 hours, even though we've been talking a lot. It's been a whole lot of things said. It's been a whole lot of energy put out there, including this video right here. But guess what? All we're doing is attacking each other. Who has been attacked in the last 24 hours? Who's been attacked? Jason Whitlock's been attacked. I don't know who else. I don't follow everybody out there, but I've seen the conversation, and Whitlock just happens to be a guy with thick skin, so he's taking all the negative stuff people say, and he's actually replying, and he's retweeting it, so that's how I know about it. But ladies and gentlemen, what are we doing? Tupac said in 1996, it's not them that's killing us. See, a white cop kills a black guy, or something happens to a black person that supposedly is perpetrated by a white person. We go crazy trying to attack the white person and saying white people are doing this and racism that, and Donald Trump this, and this Fox News that, whatever negative things are happening by them. But guess what? It's a whole lot more of us doing it to ourselves than it is them doing it to us. That's just a fact. And we all know it to be true, but we don't want to talk about that. Why? Because it ain't nothing to get excited about. It's nothing to sensationalize, because then we got to look at ourselves in the mirror. But when we look at the other, the they, as DJ Khaled would say, when we look at they, and we can say, all right, we fighting against them, we wait for any little pretext, some reason to attack, then now we get excited. But guess what? What have we achieved? What exactly have we achieved? Y'all got to understand the game that's being played, ladies and gentlemen. If as black people, there's people out there who want to see black people just destroyed and walk off this planet and never exist again, like Tupac said, we not going to walk off this planet unless y'all choose to. It's not them that's doing it to us. It's us that's doing it to us. And y'all got to use your brains. Stop letting people in the media, even myself, radio, TV, sports people, anybody, tell you how to think, what to believe, and what is true. Don't accept what anybody else says as a fact unless you know it for sure to be a fact. I talk about this on my podcast every single damn day. Don't accept anybody else's information but your own. When somebody comes on radio like Charlamagne and says, this guy's a coon, this guy's a house nigga because he did this and this, and he said this about black people. Just because a black person tells another black person you're out of line and you did something wrong doesn't mean that they're trying to support white people or that they're a coon or they're Uncle Tom. They might actually be right. There may be an ounce of truth to what they're saying. I said this on my podcast a couple of days ago. When somebody says something negative about you or criticizes you, even if they are completely off base, it's probably based in just the slightest ounce of truth. There has to be some truth somewhere in there. You got to be wise enough to look at it and say, okay, they said a whole bunch of ridiculous stuff and a whole bunch of stuff to hype up the audience, but you know what? There's a little bit of truth in this little part right here. So let me work on myself with this little part right here. When we're attacking each other, all we're doing is destroying ourselves from within. That's all we're doing. A person who hates black people is happy right now because that's all we've been doing over the last 24 hours. And it all started over somebody spray painting something on LeBron James' house. Well, LeBron could have handled it differently, yes. But look, he said whatever he wanted to say. It's his house. He can say whatever he wants to say. They asked him the question, not me, not anybody else. Jason Whitlock came out and said, I don't agree with that. He has the right to not agree, and he had his reasons for not agreeing. People could come on, the people who were on TV with him, Chris Broussard especially, disagreed. They had their little back and forth for 10 minutes, and it was over. But then people on social media picked it up. Let's attack Whitlock. He's a coon. He's trying to support white people. We got a college professor, Michael Eric Dyson. You're supposed to be one of our leaders, dude. He comes out and says you're a mouthpiece for white supremacy? Really? White supremacy over somebody getting the N-word spray painted on their house. He said what he said. Now, Jason Whitlock, because he didn't agree with what LeBron said by bringing up Emmett Till, is that he's a mouthpiece for white supremacy? Really? Is that the absurd absolute, or is it not, ladies and gentlemen? Even if you just heard of it in this video, does it make sense when I'm explaining to you? Because when I explain to you concepts, I want to make sure you can understand it. Even if you've never heard of it before, you should be able to understand what I'm saying. Is that absurd, or is that absurd? That's fucking absurd. And you're a college professor, dude. Like, there are black people who look up to you, and they have legitimate, logical reasons they look up to you. And when people look up to Charlemagne, I can see he's entertaining. He's an entertaining dude. He wrote a book. He's a smart guy. He came up in the radio industry. There are some things I can see why you look up to him, but some things he does is kind of the nonsense. And that's part of his job, do the nonsense, get ratings, get people to watch the YouTubers. That's his business. That's what he gets paid to do. He doesn't get paid to educate. Michael Eric Dyson, you get paid to educate, bro. You saying somebody is a mouthpiece for white supremacy because he questioned LeBron James' statement? Like, really? You had to take it there? You had to take it to the absurd absolute? I get it. You were on the Breakfast Club. Maybe that's why. I don't know if he would have said that in the classroom at Georgetown. I didn't go to Georgetown. Never attended his classes. And again, I haven't read his books. But dude, like, that's way too far. Like, you super reaching on that, and you missed. All right, not only did you reach, but you didn't even get the ball. All right, you fouled them, and they got an M1, dude. The white supremacists that you're actually talking about, if there are people out there who hate, guess what? They happy right now because they got all of us infighting. They got our leaders attacking. They got our leaders attacking other people who are trying to have a point. Why can't we just come together and have a damn conversation? If you disagree with somebody on social media, ladies and gentlemen, even me, if you disagree with everything I said in this video, if you come and you start calling names and throwing out these slurs and saying, oh, you're just trying to appease white people or you're trying to support white supremacy, how are you helping anything? All right, if someone said that to you, would you be willing to have a conversation with that person, or are you ready to go at that person's throat, whether either literally or figuratively? You ready to go at them? You ready to attack them? So y'all gonna have y'all back and forth, or y'all gonna have a physical fight, or whatever it's gonna be. It's not gonna help anything. Is the point that I'm making. So when you go at somebody like that with that kind of language, it ain't helping anybody. But we're going at each other with that kind of language way more than they are going at us with anything. Again, it was one word sprayed on LeBron's house. All this energy of everybody fighting against each other. It's like the Royal Rumble with WWF. Everybody just beating each other up for who wins and what do they get. That's the question that I want to ask. If any of y'all got a comment on this, I ain't going to talk about this shit all day. If any of y'all got a comment on this, you want to set me straight on something. If I got something wrong, let me know. I want to know. Let me know if I got something wrong. If you agree with this, you disagree, please say your piece, because black folks, we got to do better. And I know that's a saying people made kind of in jest to be funny, but I'm dead serious. We got to do better than this. Our leaders, people who's supposed to be our leaders. I'm talking Whitlock, LeBron, Charlemagne, Michael Eric Dyson. Like, this can't be happening. Like, we can't go attacking each other. Now, even Whitlock, he disagreed with LeBron, but he did not attack LeBron. He said, look, you playing the victim here. Like, you could have pushed this off. And even if LeBron disagreed with it, he wasn't disrespectful in what he said about LeBron. He just disagreed with it. But then Charlemagne and Dyson, they took it to a whole other level. They took it to the absurd absolute. And then people eat this shit up because it's entertaining, it sounds good, and it's sensational. Ladies and gentlemen, you got to use your brain. You got to look at the entertainment, look at the sensational stuff, look at the stuff that everybody's talking about, and think for yourself. Don't let the internet or me or a college professor or a dude on the radio or a person with a whole lot of money or a person who got a nice car or a pretty girl or whatever they got, they can jump high. Don't let them tell you how to think. Don't let them tell you how to live. Don't let them tell you what to believe and what not to believe. You got to do that for yourself. And that's what work on your game is all about. Dre all day.